Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Where It All Began. I am so excited to talk to today's guest. This is a person that I have known, I think, my entire life. And although we have never shared the stage together, I have seen him perform countless times, and he is such a talent. Today, we are talking to Brady Miller, and despite our mother's jokes, there is no relation. Brady earned his BFA at Ohio Northern University and is a graduate of Findlay High School. He has been in so many productions, including Anything Goes, The Sound of Music, Young Frankenstein, Gypsy, and the national tour of 42nd Street. He has performed at so many amazing places. He's performed at Goodspeed, he's performed at Paper Mill Playhouse and the Muni, and that truly is just the tip of the iceberg. So let's get into it and talk to one of my very good family friends and find out where it all began. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Busy, but good.
That's how we like to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you? How are things are you in New York right now?
Yes, in New
Okay.
York, things are good. Audition season's in full swing.
Yep.
Survival jobs are in full swing. Everything is, going
Yeah.
according to plan.
Awesome. So welcome to Where It All Began. I'm so excited to be talking with you, especially because you've known me my entire life. Between our moms working together and, it's always been like Brady Miller and like it's always been a part of each other's lives. So like I had said, the goal with this podcast is to kind of shine the light on the people that don't always get the spotlight. You watch the Tonys and you hear about the agents, the producers, the voice teachers, but not the pivotal years of middle school, high school, whatever, that struggle was. It's crazy to think about kind of where we're at because I remember seeing you perform at the high school and especially like Beauty and the Beast always sticks in my brain. When you were LeFou, that always is in my mind for some reason when I think of like watching you perform and
Oh,
then seeing you in 42nd Street when it toured to the Stranahan. Like it's just crazy that like this is where we're at now.
yeah.
So it really is like a full circle moment. So I'm excited to hear from you kind of who those people were in your life that helped you along the way. So if you're ready, I'd love to jump right in and start asking questions.
Let's do it. Bring on the questions.
Awesome. So like I had said, you and I are from the same hometown, very small town in Ohio. How do you feel your environment shaped who you are today?
Oh goodness. I feel like I could write a full essay on this. Um, it's funny, I was just in Findlay last weekend for my grandma's birthday. So I took my boyfriend with me, so we got to like explore and it's fun to like relive the past a little bit when you go back to visit.
Hmm.
Because I've gone back how many times? Obviously, I go back a couple times a year. But to like take the time to really go to the places that meant a lot and be like, oh right, this happened here, or this person used to live in this house, or this is where like XYZ happened. It was so nice to relive that and be like, oh my goodness, this is I haven't you don't think about those parts of life once you're gone for a while. So going back and like actually reliving it on purpose was really special. So it's funny that that's kind of like the forefront of my brain when we're talking about this. And oh my gosh, Finley is, like I always kind of joke that there's like something in the water there when it comes to performers, because there are like you, me, Lucy, Bo, Gavin, all, everyone that we grew up with, especially when it came to performing of like, even in show choir, I look up to those people and I'm like, those are still some of the best performers that I know. And I am so grateful for that. So, one, I think where I was impacted my life because I was surrounded by a lot of very talented people who were also doing this thing that I like to do. Um, but my gosh, the music education department in Finley, I think, is really what like gave me everything that I have today. All of the educators really in Finley, especially our moms being so involved in the education department, I think made me appreciate it even more and want to grasp onto everything that I could when it came to music and performing. So starting in fourth grade with learning the violin, I think is really kind of where it actually all began for me. Because I loved it so much. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And it was it later with the violin, it was actually funny. My violin teacher at the time, Chris Klosterman, I'm just gonna start saying names, taught me everything I know, which is, a feat when it comes to violin because it takes a lot of patience. So she was the best. Um, but I remember she told me I loved to play schmaltzy. Like I loved to like long legato, lush violin pieces, and I think that's also true. Then it like translated to the way I like to sing, and like even today, like in voice lessons, people are like, you have to learn to sound a little less pretty. Not that I like, not that I go in and I'm like, I sound gorgeous, but it's just I love that. Like I think they go hand in hand. So, um, starting with violin is how it all started, but then. Um, yeah, the music system as a whole was really kind of what raised me. And then, funny enough, it was church choir was really like where it all began too when it came to like singing and performing in that capacity. My best friend Lucy, her mom was the choir director for the children's choir at the time, told my mom, Brady could sing. He should be in this. And then Lucy's dad was the head of the theater department at the University of Findlay. And he was like, well, I know Brady can sing. We need a boy in the ensemble of Shenandoah the musical. Does he want to do it? And that's really then it like say goodbye. The rest is history. Um, and that's, I think humble beginnings of
Yeah.
how it all started for me.
At the high school, were you under Debbie Benson in like musical? Did you have Cantrell and Debbie?
Yeah, I did. I had both of them. Yeah. They
Okay.
always directed and did the shows. And then Craig Van Rutterham typically, I think almost always music directed them. I think, yeah, it was those people were my like high school
Yeah.
folks. Yeah.
And such great people. I mean,
Oh my goodness.
incredible.
Well, and that's again, it's I could name a whole laundry list of people of like I started, then I loved theater and then I did Finley Light Opera Company every summer. So then those adults like took me under their wings. That's where I met Craig. And I think that's, where I finally started to trust like, oh, these other people think I'm good. And sometimes I make a joke and they laugh. And that's fun. That feels nice. Um, and then Kevin Manley was like, he told my mom I should go to Central for middle school instead of Donnell because he was like, I'll be there. I want him in the music program at Central. He's gonna be way better off with those educators in that school. So then went to Central, did Grand Central, the show choir in eighth grade. Um, Adam Gillespie also was my music teacher in middle school. He was great. Um, and then yeah, came high school time, and then Craig was our freshman choir director, and he was awesome. And we did VIP, the show choir, and then Kevin took, it just like it snowballs. It's
Yeah.
everyone hand
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, it was the best. Oh my gosh, so
Yeah.
lucky.
Did you do any work at the Playhouse, the Fort Finley Playhouse?
I did. I did a play actually. I did A Christmas Story, and I played Ralphie. And I did Honk there. So I did a musical too. Honk the musical, which is still to date. My mom is like, that's still my favorite show you've ever done, is Honk. Because and I stand by that. I don't blame her. It's such a great show. And again, the theater community as a whole in Finley, it's like a bunch of folks who just love to perform and
Yeah.
do it together. And it was just, gosh, so great. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's I mean, such a wonderful community. Everyone there, and not even if you're a performer, but like the town is so supportive of the arts too.
Gosh, yeah.
And it's crazy how, because not everyone's that lucky.
Right.
And shows come through the Marathon Center I mean, Hades Town was there for one night, completely sold out. Like it's
Of
crazy like
course.
how much the town supports it too. So I think
I
that
know.
also kind of nurtures the outlets that we had growing up.
Yeah. It's so fun, especially now that the Marathon Performing Arts Center does take on like a touring show now. I've had friends that have now performed there and are like, oh, I did a show there. That's so funny. How random of all places, Findlay, Ohio. And I'm like, I know, but you're so right. The arts, thank goodness, are still very well supported in that community. And that's, oh my gosh, I would be nowhere without that. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So when did you move to New York? Was that right after college?
Yeah, I grad technically. I graduated college 2015, and I always say that's like I moved here that August of 2015. And it was for rehearsals for tour for 42nd Street. So I moved here, but then I was on the road for a year. So like I didn't really have roots here, but anytime we had a break on the road or time off or whatever it may be, I would always come here. So it
Yeah.
instantly felt like home even though I wasn't here technically for the first year. But
Yeah. So living in New York, are there still like small town attributes that you carry with you in your day?
yes. And it's funny you say that because again, wow, are you telepathic? Because I was just thinking about this.
It's the
Um,
last name. That's really what it is.
it must be cut from the same cloth. Um, my neighborhood, I live in Inwood in New York, which is already kind of small town. It's in Manhattan, but I always say it's like the Astoria of Manhattan. So like you are escaping like the hubbub of downtown. It's the last stop on the train. It's all the way at the top. It's super quiet. It's a lot of small businesses and a lot of families or people who've lived here for 40 years. Um, and I had this run in actually like a year ago when my parents were visiting here at like Christmas time. We were just walking around the neighborhood, and one of my old neighbors who only speaks Spanish, and I do not speak a lick of Spanish, regretfully. Um, but she was the sweetest old lady. She obviously like she just remembered me, and I remembered her, and we saw each other and just gave each other the biggest hug. Didn't speak words, but just like said hello and gave each other a hug and just kind of acknowledged each other and went on with our day. And my mom like almost started crying. And my mom, it doesn't take much, but it was so nice to be like, oh gosh, I do know like all of these faces up here. And then I worked at a coffee shop just like a block away for a while. And even still walking around, I'm like, oh, they still go there. They're carrying that same cup. I know that person because I served them every single day for 4 months in a row. Um, so I do feel like there is community even in my little neighborhood up in Inwood. Um, but in terms of theater as well, it's the same. The saying never dies of like the world is so small, especially in theater. Everyone knows everyone. And it's always fun when things come full circle and it's like, I did my first summer stock with this person, and now I'm about to be in this thing with them 13 years later. How crazy. Um, my gosh, my last agent that I had was I worked with on my first ever summer stock, and then she was my agent 10 years later. Like it is the smallest world. So like yes, I experience it all the time.
You had kind of talked about it a little bit, but what was your first moment relating to theater that you said, this is what I want to do?
Oh, I feel like there's probably several. Definitely doing Shenandoah. Um, I don't remember a ton about that experience, but I remember being like, I love this. I love this. And instantly, then I auditioned for Finland Light Opera's production of Oliver, which was like right after that. And it was that I think Oliver was probably when I really was like, I can't. What do you mean? I have to do this. Um, and I still to this day I'm better at it now, but it still happens. But especially growing up, I would always sob at the end of a show when it was the last show, the last bow, a mess. And I remember that distinctly doing Oliver because I felt like those kids became my best friends. Um, and that's such a beautiful show. And I just loved, I have visceral memories of how it felt to be at Central Middle School in the auditorium doing that show, experiencing like kind of the first times of like a, an activity that was extracurricular without my parents there that I felt comfortable. Um, because everyone else lifted me up and made me feel so accepted and involved. So I think it was probably Oliver was the first time, but there were so many other times that I was like cemented in like this is it. There's so many experiences that just make that happen.
Yeah. So was it always kind of a clear-cut decision that you were going to pursue this as a career?
Not always clear cut. There was a while in high school that I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, especially my senior year when it kind of matters the most. Um, Junior and senior year, I guess, because then you're applying to colleges and then you're auditioning, so you like have to figure it out. Um, but it was always important to me with applying to schools when I did decide theater was what I wanted to do that I could double major. Um, and so I think I only auditioned at 5 programs, and I think almost all of them were willing to try that at least. But Ohio Northern was the one that was like, sure, do it. Absolutely. If you can make it work, do it. Absolutely. Um, So I started with the idea that I'd have a a double major with business. I just didn't know what. And then I think it was my freshman or sophomore year that I decided it was going to be PR was my second major. So, and I am so glad. I loved my PR major so much, and I still like to this day when I tell people that, they're like, "Well, that's a smart combination because in theater, you are your own PR, especially nowadays when everything is so heavily reliant on social media." I'm like, "Well, I learned a lot of valuable skills then in my PR classes that taught me how to do that properly." So I still stand by that. And even during COVID, I got my certificate in interior design, which is really fun too. So I'm wondering if there's a way I could make all three work, but I don't have the brain power for that right now.
Yeah, it's cool that because I mean there is a level of almost narcissism when it comes to theater because like you have to be self-promotive and you have to be able to post videos of yourself and you
Yeah,
know that was never anything I was good at. And so like having a PR it's like built in to you. Oh, hey, look, I'm going to post this and you have to have a level of that self-assured of this is what I'm posting, this is how I'm promoting myself because you like you're right, you are your own PR manager.
yeah, and it's so funny. When I was in college, we were so focused on like what type meant and what's your type and where do you fit in theater, and more so like I think what I'm learning is that it's not so much about your type as it is your brand in a way of like how you sell yourself and not necessarily what you think they want to buy, but instead just being like, here is my brand. Here is the music I like to sing. Here is the style of dance I like to do. I can do other things, but ultimately, this is what you get. And if you want to buy it, cool. If not, moving on to the next. It's so tricky to find that balance of like expectation versus reality, I suppose is kind of a way to put it.
How do you
Yeah.
navigate that?
I am very lucky. I have a wonderful agent. He's the best. I've never experienced anyone like him. And when we had our meeting, we've only been working together for a year. And when we met last year, sorry, also my dog is making crazy noises if you hear that. Um, But when we had our first meeting last year, when I met him for the first time, he has a very open door policy in terms of the people he represents, wanting them to know who else is in his roster. So it's like, great, I know this kid who I see at every audition is also with my agents. And if he's getting other auditions that I'm not, and I would like those, what is he selling that I'm not? And how can I change that? You know what I mean? So the way my agent put it, he was like, I think of there's a website called Actors Access where you pay basically it's an Instagram but more just for agents to have or casting to have access to. So you post your singing reel, your dance reel, a monologue on there, and then your whole resume, and they can sift through and filter out who they want to see. Um, and my agent was like, I think of your Actors Access as your store, which is basically what I was saying about like the brand of it. He was like, you have different aisles. Like think of it that way of like the dairy aisle, the meat aisle, the produce, whatever. And he's like, you have one main aisle that's like what you're selling, but then you need to have other things up there that also show the other things you could sell if they wanted that. So um it's a really smart way of thinking about it, and it kind of changed my perspective on those expectations, which is really nice.
Yeah, it also helps give like parameters of like what to post and what, directors and casting agents want to see as well.
Exactly. And I'm so lucky to have him because he's also the kind of agent that like even if I have a self tape specifically for one audition, I'll send it to him, and if he doesn't like it, he'll say, "This isn't bad, but you can do better. Here's what I would fix." Or come to the studio, I'll refilm it with you and we can just get some better work out of you,
Hmm.
which is just so nice. It's so nice because not every agent will do that. Uh, so I count myself very lucky.
So switching gears a little bit,
Mhm.
being a guy in middle school who,
Mhm.
especially one who loves theater, is not easy. I know I had my struggles, and I know that's not a unique story. So,
Right.
did you face any challenges like that growing up?
I wonder if like my subconscious kind of like deleted those experiences because like I know I did. I know I felt like an outcast and I know I felt bullied. Um, but I don't really remember ever being like in the hallways like shoved in a locker or like laughed at. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't remember. In middle school, I think I just kind of like I stuck to myself and my friends that I knew I liked. So like I remember growing up in that time of life, like I had two like groups of friends, my nerd friends and my music friends. Not that my nerd friends weren't musical and my music friends weren't incredibly smart. Um, but there were just like the two groups that I was like, my nerd friends pushed me to like be in the advanced classes and to get as many A's as I could on every single thing. And my music friends pushed me to like be more involved and audition for everything and, be in the orchestra, be in the choir, be in the show choir, be in whatever. Um, so I don't know. Like I definitely know I had a hard time, but I don't have any like horror stories. Luckily. I mean, I'm very lucky for
Yeah.
that. And again, maybe I just don't remember, but yeah, I think I just kind of was like, whatever. I like my nerd friends and my music friends, and I'll just stick to that.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is currently going through those struggles right now?
Stick with your nerd friends and your music friends. Truly though, it's like, oh gosh, it's the cliche thing that you hear time and time again, and it is true for a reason. It's like, if only I could look back and be like, oh, this does not matter. This does not matter. What matters is doing what makes you the happiest and making yourself proud. And for me, doing that was playing my violin and doing plays and getting an A on advanced algebra or whatever. Like that's what mattered to me. And it so is true for the real world as an adult. It's like you get so scared when you're in middle school about, or I did at least, about like your record and whatever that like no one actually has a record of like he had detention in seventh grade, so he's not going to get this job in New York as a 35-year-old. Like that doesn't exist. And I think that was more like I think more than anything, I probably bullied myself more than other people bullied me because I was hard on myself. Um, but in a way, I'm like, well, thank goodness. Like, I'd rather have been hard on myself and pushed myself, um, and rise above the expectations of whatever anyone else thinks of me.
Yeah.
Um, so I think in a long-winded way, I'm giving really long answers. I would say to just like do your best to like hear what people are saying, sure, but acknowledge that like in 10 years, you're not going to remember half of these people, let alone feel affected by that. If you can muster the strength to challenge yourself to maybe focus that in other ways that are uplifting to yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I was so lucky is that it was like, sure, I might have been bullied, but what outshined that was that I just didn't care and I put it toward what I liked doing anyways, you know?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, those people who are bullies will see you do the choir concert and sing your solo and hear everyone else scream for you, or they'll watch you play your violin and be like, that's cool. I wish I could do that. Or like, you know what I mean? It all feels so heavy, but the reality is most people are still going to be very impressed by you giving your very best of your own self, I think,
Yeah.
is my advice.
So, what was your college audition experience like?
Oh my goodness. What a great question. We, I'm sure your family kind of felt the same way too. My family at least was like, we didn't know what the heck it meant to audition for a college musical theater program. I didn't know how to pick a song and cuts and contrasting songs and to pick a monologue and the clothes to wear for a dance call. I had no idea at all what any of that meant because I didn't grow up going to a dance studio. So like the dancing I did was the dancing I did in show choir and in the local musicals. So going to college auditions with all these kids who've taken ballet for 15 years, 18 years. Um, I was very in over my head, very in over my head. Um, and another shout out of someone who affected my life so wonderfully was Joanne Chase. I don't know if you know Joanne.
I know the
Um,
name. I don't know her though.
she directed I'm going on a tangent, but it has a point. She actually directed the high school's production of Children of Eden, and they needed two middle school boys to play the younger versions of Cain and Abel. And I was in that, and that's another one of those shows that like cemented that I knew I loved it so much. And I think it's partially the show is beautiful, but two, Joanne gave us such a wonderful experience, and it felt so like gritty theater in a way because like Joanne is used to live in New York and she knows what it means to like make something from like nothing. It oh God, I remember feeling so special in that. And so Joanne helped me prepare and rehearse monologues for college auditions. I remember that. And thank goodness, because at least I had something to practice. Um but all in all, I only get, like I said, I only auditioned at five programs, and I really shot for like the moon with some of them, Michigan being one, and like Ball State and Otterbein. Those were like the programs that I really was like, wow, this is sparkly and amazing. And then I auditioned at Millikan and Ohio Northern, and those are the only two I got into. I think at Ball State and at Otterbein, I either got into like the music program or like the acting program. And they were like, you can take supplemental classes and kind of make your own musical theater and then re-audition for the program.
Hmm.
But I decided I was like, I need to go to Northern. It felt the most right with the double major, with knowing Kirsten and the faculty, and it felt more like home. So that's what I ended up going to. But it was a lot. I remember a lot. I was just so nervous and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, and it's such a weird like time in life too, because it's part of that you don't know what you want to do quite yet.
Hmm.
It's very stressful because for auditioning specifically, a lot of it starts your junior year
That's right.
and not your senior year when most kids are doing it. So it becomes
Yeah,
a very involved process. It's a little easier now with like the self tapes and stuff like that, but
sure.
when you're traveling to a unified or you're traveling to whatever college because they have auditions, is it's a stressful time. It
It is.
is.
Well, and it's so crazy because like normal, I say normal, students who don't do musical theater typically have to just like write the essay, they get in, they maybe have to go do an interview for a scholarship, and that's kind of it. And then for us, it's like, right, we have to do all of that and still get accepted into the theater program. So like you're writing the essay, you're doing the interviews for scholarships, you're doing all these things, you're touring the campus, but then you're also auditioning to get into the program that you're applying to that school for in the first place. And if you don't get into the program, but you get into the school, it's a crux of like, it's a great school, but I didn't get the theater program. So like, what do I do? It's a lot. And at 17 years old, that's like it's a huge undertaking and a lot of responsibility on your shoulders that like I don't think you're really ready for. Most kids aren't, at least. I remember my mom and I still she still yells at me about this, about my scholarship interview at Ohio Northern, and I blew it. I blew it because I was so nervous. I was so nervous. And she's like, "You brat. Why didn't you get that scholarship?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. I just didn't know what to say. No one prepares you for that unless you really find someone to prepare you for that. But I didn't have that. So it's a
Yeah.
lot.
So you said that you didn't take any dance lessons growing up?
That's correct. Yeah.
That's
Um,
crazy. Because, I mean, truly, and I'm not saying this like because you're right here, truly like one of the most talented dancers I know. I mean, especially in tap, like I see the videos of, there was one that I saw the other day, and it was like you at the very end in some rehearsal. And I don't
mhm.
remember what it was for, but especially because I saw you in 42nd Street. And were you in Anything Goes?
I did a production of it in Pittsburgh a couple summers ago. Yeah.
Okay. And so I remember seeing video, like, I mean, truly an amazing dancer. So how did you get to that, to like to the level that you are?
I think I remember growing up like doing The Sound of Music or doing Oklahoma, like obviously there's dancing in that, especially for the kids or the ensembles. Um, so like I remember learning choreography as a kid and I didn't know any terminology, but just like watching whoever was choreographing and being like, "Oh, you put your right foot over your left and then you unwound yourself and you turned around and then you did a bell kick." And that's what it looked like when I watched you do it. So I'm gonna just try to mimic what you just did. Um, so I think it just has always kind of come naturally, um, to an extent. Don't get me wrong. Like there are still like my leg is not going above my head to very cleanly, at least. I can fake it, but yeah, I think I just got lucky that it has somehow just made sense to my body. But then again, I will always go back to Ohio Northern and give all of my credit to those dance professors in that program. And that's why I always preach. If I get to do like a talk back after a show and someone asks about where people went to school, I will always say it doesn't matter if it's a big name or not. What matters is taking out of the program what will best help you. And I stand by that with Northern because the PR department and theater department alike were so willing to like, if I wanted to stay after and ask Brenda Hoyt Brackman for extra pointers on how to do a double pullback, and that meant I was going to be late to my PR class or I was going to miss it that day, they didn't care because they were like, well, sure, you're going to do that with us too next week when you want to ask questions about this thing about you know, uh, crisis control and how to do that in PR. Like you're going to want to stay after and ask these questions. So do it for both and get the most out of it because you're paying for the education. You might as well get like wring it dry for all it's worth. So, and I don't know if you had Liz Kozad when you were
Hmm.
there. She also was a huge supporter of me and was built instilled a lot of confidence in me as a dancer. And I'll never forget it very sweetly, and I still don't really know if I believe her, but it put confidence in me that she one day was like, you could be in a dance company, Brady. You easily could if you just stuck with this and put yourself forward in that way. You could be in a dance company tomorrow or whatever it may be. But that's really where I got my confidence as a dancer was through those teachers at Ohio Northern. Thank God for them. Thank God for them. Well, go speaking of the professors at ONU, Brenda especially. I took tap one, two, three, probably done by mid junior year. So like I hadn't taken tap for a while. By the time senior year spring came around, and I had actually callbacks for 42nd Street, and they were in New York, and I said I was going to go, and I went. I booked a plane ticket for like a Tuesday night or a Tuesday morning, did my audition, and was planning to fly back the next Wednesday. Um, we were in the middle of Drowsy Chaperone rehearsals. It was kind of crazy. No one really ever left to go to something that big, like in the middle of all of that. Um, but I was going and I said, Brenda, I have this audition. I haven't taken your tap class in a while. Can you, after class one day, just like throw a combo at me so I can get back in the mindset of tap auditions? And she was like, sure, of course. And I had those crappy, like $80 Capezio tap shoes that like don't make good tap sounds. And she, was very kindly being Brenda, was like, you're doing the steps, but they just don't sound as good as they could. And she was like, what size are you? And I was like, 9. She was like, I'm tall, my feet are big. You could probably fit in my black flat tap shoes. Try them on. And of course, they fit like a glove. And I did it again, and she was like, that sounds way better. Take my shoes to this callback. Just don't change the shoelaces because they're lucky, but that's all I ask. Otherwise, take them. I won't miss them for a week or however long you have to be there. So went to the audition, stayed the entire day, all the way to the end. It was just me and one other boy. And that night I got a call and they were like, we need you to stay till Monday. And it was Tuesday. And I only had a duffel bag of like 3 outfits. So I was like, oh my God. And my flight was the next day. So I had to cancel my flight, rebook it. All my professors to be like, I'm going to miss rehearsal for Drowsy Chaperone, but they need me to stay for this tour. It was crazy, 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 crazy. And then I came back from that week, and then that bled right into spring break. And while we were on spring break, I found out that I booked the tour. So then I got to come back to class, give Brenda her shoes, and be like, by the way, I booked it. And she just like lost it. It was the most special thing in the world. But that is the testament. like just one example of how much the dance faculty at Northern meant to me because they really were for every student that supportive, and it was just wonderful.
She is one of the most amazing humans ever,
Oh my
truly.
gosh. I could write a book on how amazing she is, just in
Yeah.
every capacity of life. I am so grateful to know. Brenda, if you're listening, I love you.
Yes. And I think that's also why I would almost, because I mean, if you're pursuing musical theater, you're going to audition for Michigan. You're going to audition for Baldwin Wallace. You're going to audition for Cincinnati, like the big ones. But I feel like what you had said about like missing classes, that's why it's almost more important to go to a small school because you don't get that one-on-one time like you would at a big school.
I could talk for hours about it. It truly, and there are also people who work on Broadway professionally, nonstop, that did not even major in musical theater because they either didn't want to or they didn't get in. I just did White Christmas with my like now really good friend. He said he auditioned 2 years in a row, never got into a single program, but he's been on Broadway 3 times. Like you
Wow.
like when you're talented and you try hard enough and you have a really good personality and people like you, college, like, I don't want to say college doesn't matter because obviously it matters, but that kind of can go out the window a little bit because if you're good and people like you, that's ultimately what matters the most.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked a lot about your tour with 42nd Street.
Yeah.
What was that? I mean, that was such a life-changing experience for you. And I mean, kind of catapulted you into this world. What do you think like the most valuable lesson you got from that was, especially because you got it so early in your career?
Yeah, I think gosh, it's hard to pick like one most valuable lesson because it was so formative for me. Uh I guess most importantly, it taught me to trust myself. Um, and it made me grow up a little bit. I had never been further west than St. Louis at that point in my life. And so what was crazy was we rehearsed here in the city and then we did our tech rehearsals in Yakima, Washington. So we flew a direct flight from New York to Seattle, landed, and then drove across the state of Washington to our theater there. And my friend, who was my bus buddy on tour, sat next to me the whole year. She was like, I will never forget watching Brady with his phone glued to the bus window, driving across Washington because he had never seen a mountain before. And it's so true, but like, it was a year of so many firsts that I think it was the most special because though I had an amazing, beautiful, giant cast of friends, I was still doing that all on my, I didn't know anyone before starting that process. So I think it forced me to like trust myself and trust that I'm worthy of having this career and these friends, but also trust that like I know what I'm doing and I don't want to say it gave me street cred because look at me, please. But it took me from like a sheltered Ohio boy to like someone who was more ready to conquer the world a little bit more. And it almost was kind of like a second college in a way because everyone was my age. We were all freshly graduated, and we kind of all got to experience that together. So it was just a true growing experience. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I had from that.
Yeah. And you were also an understudy on that, right? You understudied Bert.
Yes, I understudied Bert, and I went on 3 times, which is again, I wish I could go back and watch myself and be like, what are we thinking, Brady? What are we thinking? Um, I have horror stories from that, but also amazing, wonderful stories. So I'll just say I'll leave it at that. It was wonderful to understudy.
Yeah.
On such a long process too. We always joked by like month 9 of that tour, we were like, I think we could sit in this pool right now and recite the entire script from start to finish if we just sat here and did easily, easily. I mean, the whole entire, however many, like 70-page script, 80-page script, like that. It was nothing. So understudying became a little bit more second nature because it was like, well, I know how this sounds. It's like when you listen to a CD in your car over and over again and you know the starting note of the next song before it starts because you listen to it that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same thing. So I loved understudying though. It was so fun.
Yeah. So you've had a very extensive career so far. I mean, you've done so much work touring, you've done the Muni, and
Yeah.
you did chess at the Muni, right?
Did, yes.
Yeah. What how important is it for you to be so far away from home but also have a support system? What does that look like for you?
Oh gosh. Just in terms of just performing in general, like regionally across the country,
Yeah,
or
and how do you stay grounded with remaining who you are when, you're literally all over the country?
I think I often, especially while I'm even here in the city, I take note of how I perceive other people. Um, and actually, even stepping back from when I lived here, when I was doing summer stock in college, I remember I worked at Port House the summer after my sophomore year, which felt like a gift from God because that was like the theater in Ohio that like it was competitive. Baldwin Wallace kids and Kent State kids mostly worked there because it's in Cleveland. So like to be anyone from another school to book a job there for the summer is very difficult. So to get it, I was like, me? I get to do this? This is crazy. And that's when I started really taking note of other people and how they affect me. And I think what's more important is taking note of how people positively affect you. Um, and I remember that summer, I played model and fiddler, and my Zeidel is the best person in the world. Her name is Danielle Dorfman. She's the best. And I remember one time she randomly just gave me this little elephant figurine with the nicest handwritten card I've ever seen in my life. And that it for no reason. It was just a random like Thursday. And she was like, I just thought of you. And I wanted to let you know what you mean to me and your friendship means to me. And I just wanted to give this to you. And it changed my life in that moment. Because I was like, oh, I want other people to feel this way from me. So I like stole that from her. And then my other friend Sam, who I'm still friends with today, we still work together hilariously at our survival job. Um, on the opposite end, Sam is like the most carefree, zany, outspoken, wonderful person you'll ever meet. Him so funny, so himself that I remember seeing him too, and I was like, I wish I could be more like Sam, and that I could be more like I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm just going to say what I want and be myself and live in that. Um, those two people I stole that from. And then I think every year since then, or every contract I work, I try to focus more on that of like, okay, what can I steal from people in a funny way of being like, what can I do moving forward that might make someone else feel better when they're around me? So I think that's how I ground myself is that I'm like, I know who I am, but I am trying to always think of how I can still put forth some good in the world. So I think that's how I stay grounded in myself. And then I'm just really lucky that I have a great friend group, a great partner, a great family that like I call everyone every day. Um, and that I'm really grateful for too.
So as you kind of reflect over your early years of being in the industry, have your goals and aspirations changed at all?
Yeah, I think I've actually been having these conversations with my family about like what it means to have a career in theater. And a friend of mine had said this, and it kind of stuck with me of like, in no other career would you take a back seat just to like get another job. Like you're always going to want to like, I don't want to say one up yourself, but like you won't willingly take a demotion just for the sake of liking your job. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And for me, Brady, that is kind of like the perfect way of putting like what my goals are for my career. And like theater in any capacity is valid, right? And like doing it because you love it is absolutely valid. And the age old joke of like we're not in it for the money is correct. It's you're not going to be unless you're so and so Joe Schmo famous person, you're not going to make billions of dollars doing theater. But I do think there is some grace to give yourself of like, right, I've worked at a lot of places and I've built up some momentum of like forward movement and the pie graph is still moving up. You know what I mean? The line graph, I should say. The pie graph doesn't move like that. Um, so like I think that's kind of where I am is that I'm like I'm not in any way thinking that I'm above a job at all. But I think more so it's like you work in theater to make connections, to meet good people, to work at great places. And once that starts, I think there's only self-worth in thinking, great, I've met really awesome people who like me and support me and want to work with me. And there's no harm in saying, like, well, not taking a back seat and waiting for it, but also trusting that like there's validity to these relationships and they exist for a reason. And there's no harm in saying, I'm gonna stay put in New York and kind of harness what those relationships mean and take more class with them and be more present instead of just getting up to go do another job just so I can get another job. Um, so that's kind of where I am right now. That might look different again in 5 years, who knows? But for now, I'm like, I'm kind of happy with the home I've made in New York and the people and community I have. Um, and I kind of want to see where that takes me a little bit and
Hmm.
like let the kite kind of carry me a little and trust that the groundwork that I've done is solid enough to carry me forward a little bit more on its own without me having to like grind and go to everything and be in everything. That's kind of where I am right now.
Hmm. And I think that's important because theater is so self-serving, especially because, like you said, we don't do it for the money. We do it because we love it. And if you start to do that grind and, work too hard at it, it's so easy to get burnt out from it. And then you
Yeah.
lose your love and joy for what you do.
Exactly, exactly. You can't, I don't think it's healthy to just continue to work and book. Sure, awesome that you can book a million shows. That's great too. But I think there does have to be that moment where you're like, okay, but let me just ground myself for a second and take a deep breath. I don't know. I'm also a homebody, so maybe that's just me. But I'm also like, I love my apartment. I pay for this. I should enjoy being in New York. It's the greatest city in the world. Let me be a part of it. Yeah, that's kind of
Hmm.
where I am.
So with this career, we talked about it a little before, being not one of the easiest. It has a lot of ups and downs to it.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of downtimes, and how have you kind of gotten through those? You talk about your survival job. What does that look like for you when you're in between contracts or not booking?
My goodness, this year especially, every theater is doing Waitress and Jersey Boys and like some other random show. That kind of always happens every year. It's like right. They released the rights for Beauty and the Beast this year, so everyone's doing Beauty and the Beast because it's cheaper to produce. And you just have those years. Sometimes it's Mamma Mia. Everywhere is Mamma Mia, and there's yeah, you hit the parts of that where you're like, I'm just not right for those shows. I could go in for them, but ultimately I don't want to kid myself and I don't want to waste my time or theirs if I don't really feel right for it and I go into it with that already, I'm like, well, then I'm not going to book it anyways. So yeah, there are lulls, and this year especially, it's been pretty quiet audition wise. And the things I've been in for, I've been like, oh, that felt awesome. I haven't heard anything though. So it is hard that's kind of the harder practice of everything with this career, I think, is that it's like trusting that just because you're hearing no's or you're hearing nothing doesn't mean you're done, It's just leaving space for the right thing to just fall into place. The same thing happened for me last year. I did a production of Young Frankenstein, and it was the last audition I had of the season at like the end of April, I want to say. Like kind of came out of nowhere and unexpectedly turned out to be the greatest gift. But I was mentally preparing that I was just going to be here for the summer and figure it out. But yeah, I think that's the way I cope with it though, of like the no's is like this isn't career ending. It's not that they don't like me. It's not that blah blah blah, the list goes on. It's that okay, cool. Then I'm gonna take this as a sign to like trust, take class, and still make the most out of why I'm here in the first place and know that something else is coming along. Theater's not going anywhere. So that's kind of how I get through it.
Hmm.
As hard as it is, it's not an easy thing to tell yourself, and I still have to practice that.
Yeah. So you had said that you wanted to talk about Gavin being from the same hometown.
Yeah.
What did he, especially like we had said, having someone to look up to in your pivotal years, what did he mean for you?
Um, oh gosh. You know, the thing that was constantly said after his passing was like, it speaks volumes that so many people have so only the best things to say. Even people who did not know him personally somehow were affected by this wonderful man who changed, literally changed lives. And I think that was my biggest thing that I looked up to him for was kind of what I was talking about. Like he modeled my expectation of what it means to be a kind person in musical theater, because there are a lot of not kind people, and I'll just plainly say that. um, and I think he gave me hope that someone from our small town, or any small town, but like a town like Findlay that's like wonderful and supportive, but still has its problems, um, that you can still make something of yourself and make your dreams come true. Um, so just I think his unwavering positivity and the fact that he was just so incredibly talented, his voice was unmatched, and uh, he kind of, in a way that like my friend Sam that I was talking about, I think Gavin kind of carried the same thing in his life of like truly like blissful living, of like caring about his neighbors and wearing his heart on his sleeve, but also like being a goofball and being, you know, himself to the fullest degree. Um, that's really what's the most inspiring about him to me. Just like he didn't have a care in the world, just love, which is
Hmm.
so necessary and needed. I think that's what I looked up to the most about him.
And he was, I mean, such a wonderful guy and cared a lot about his roots.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
Well,
it's important to talk about the people, Brenda, Liz, all the people that that helped you get to where you are. I think it's so important to tell their stories too, because he loved getting to do that for Finley.
that's right. And and I think that's also like kind of ties in with what I was saying too about like he's just a good person doesn't even begin to describe like that kind of human being. Because obviously he's a good person, but he's better than that. He's more than just a good person. It's crazy the things that he would do for Finley and for anyone that's from there. It didn't matter if he knew them or not. But I think that's kind of his how he operated in the world too, which is just great.
So I have a few things before we wrap up.
Yeah.
So it's this question's a little we've already talked a lot about it, but when you watch the Tonys, you always hear about the people, if there's time, they run out of time so quickly, that helped get them to where they are. If you were giving your Tony speech, who would those people be that you would mention on that stage?
Oh gosh. I think I would say, oh God, now my list is like running. I think I would say the Anders family, Craig Van Metterham, Kevin Manley, Debbie Benson, Joanne Chase, Vicky McClurkin. I think are the people that I would say, and obviously my parents and my family. Hello, duh. But I think those are like the people who were actually the most formative in my life, um, and made me believe in myself. I think those are the people I would say.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, those people are they're so pivotal at that age.
Mhm.
Now we're of the age that we mold ourselves and,
Mhm.
surrounded by who we're by. But in middle school and high school, it's so what society wants us to mold to, or high school wants us to mold to, that those people creating those spaces are so important to have in our lives.
Exactly. And not to say, you know what? Throw Brenda in there too. I'd probably say Brenda. Um, but not to say that like the college professors aren't equally as incredible to me and didn't make that impression. But I think those people really are the ones that I wouldn't be who I am without having known those people.
Who would be, if there was one person's story that you would like to hear? If you were listening to this podcast, who would that person be?
Are they a Finley person or can it be anyone in the world?
Anyone in the world.
Goodness. I mean, I feel like I already know a decent amount, but I would love to like talk more candidly this way with Randy Skinner. Um, because I know he's an Ohio boy too, and that's kind of what we connected on with when we met during tour is Ohio and what it means to be from Ohio and the people who we surround ourselves that, also love where we're from, whether in taking into consideration the problems it has too. Um, and yeah, I think I'd love to know more about what his younger life was like.
Hmm.
And like the stories of how he got involved with 42nd Street and how he kind of took over the ownership of 42nd Street. I know some of it, but I think I'd love to just sit down and be like, let's talk in this capacity and answer
Hmm.
these. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I'll try and get that in the books just for you. So
thanks. You can tell him I sent him to you.
perfect. So the last question I have, we talked a lot about the struggles and how like this is not always an easy career path. It has its very good times, but along with those come very difficult times. So what would you tell listeners to help them stay motivated and focused on their dreams even when the road gets tough?
I think I think most commonly it's toughest when we aren't getting validation through booking a show and a job. Um, because it's so easy to put our self-worth in a paycheck. Um, and I think what grounds us in our at least me and my friends, what grounds us in our gratitude for like what we do and our love for it is in the in-betweens, making something, making anything. Um, a group of my friends just started this awesome dance collective, which I'm going to shamelessly plug. It's called Interim Dance Company. And through fundraising and grants and everything, they've provided or they've garnered enough money to pay for an entire year already of now free dance classes for anyone in New York City. Um, and teachers who teach aren't paid, but it's not necessarily about that. It's more so like we just want to dance and take a class, and class can be really expensive in New York. So instead of making that a problem, my friends said, well, let's find the solution. How do we make class free? And how can we give that back to people? So I think that is huge. I have ideas of like a new dance reel that I want to make just because I need a new one and I want to do something creative. And even just like singing something and putting it on tape to put on your Instagram, because then you never know. You might sing the right thing and the right person might see it. And then suddenly they're like, hey, come in for this. I didn't know about you, but now I have like, I think you have to stay excited and curious about finding other ways to make this industry work for you. Because again, there's in any other industry, there's kind of it's just like a linear path. Like you get your entry level job and you just ascend in the company, and then suddenly you're in a six-figure job by the end of the like 20 years. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it works. Theater is not so linear, but I think that's what's exciting about it is that there's no right answer. And as long as you're doing what you love and finding new ways to continue to do that, you're gonna be just fine. And this is also me self-therapizing myself. I need to hear this too. Because it is easy to get, it's easy to sit in the lulls, but just even taking a walk will change everything. And it's hard to self-motivate. But at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you. And if you stay in the rut, you're going to stay in the rut, and no one's going to want to hire someone in a rut. So finding ways to excite yourself and remind yourself why you're good at this and why you love it is, I think, the answer to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And very important too. Especially it's so easy now with technology to find ways to Google something and
Yes.
stay active. There's
Yes.
always some class you can take.
There's a YouTube piano track for any song, and you can easily put it into a modulator and change the key. Or, everyone's got an iPhone now. Film yourself doing something, or find a song that you like and just make a dance to it. Or you don't have to do anything with your body. Paint a picture, go for a walk, It just is about tapping into that creative part of our brains that we all have. And we all know that feeling of flow that is so talked about of like when you're doing something that you love and you're so invested, you do not know that time is passing. And I crave those days, especially when I'm in like this busy schedule right now. I'm like, all I want to do is something for myself that makes me feel complete. Um, which I think the ultimate version of that is doing a show, but there are so many other ways to find that on my own. Of
Well, I can't thank you enough for being on.
course.
I was so excited to talk to you. You stole my thunder a little bit, but is there anything else that you would like to plug or promote?
Oh gosh. My Instagram is at it's Brady Miller. No, I'm right now I'm not really working on any projects. Some prospects, but again, we'll see. Um, no, at the moment I'm just doing my own thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, of
Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. I was so excited to
course.
talk to you. So,
Thank you for having me. This is awesome, and I love that
yeah,
you're doing this. Truly, thank you.
we'll have a great rest of your night. I don't want to hold you up too long. So,
Fine. Thank you so much.
yeah, of
I'll
course.
try to find Chelsea's information so you can talk to her
Okay.
too.
Yeah,
She's
perfect.
the best. She's the best.
Perfect. Yeah,
Great.
awesome.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you. See ya.
Bye.
It was so good getting to talk to Brady today. It was so good catching up, and I've truly known him my entire life. And like we said, like his mom was my third grade teacher, and we've just always been a part of each other's lives. And so it was so cool getting to hear his story, growing up in the same hometown, and what he's doing now, and where he sees himself going in the next couple years. So please be sure to support him. Go follow him on his Instagram. He did drop it in the video, so that saved me a little bit from doing my job over here. So please go support him. If you get the chance to see him, he is such an amazing performer, such a genuine and just kind human being. So it was just so great getting to talk to him. Please stay tuned for next week's episode. I am so excited about next week's episode. So stay tuned because you don't want to miss finding out where it all began. Bye.